The day I got the marriage license with him, a line of floating text suddenly popped up above his head. I finally married her. I'm over the moon. I froze completely, confused out of my mind. What was going on? We'd agreed he had a white moonlight crush he'd loved for 7 years, and he would never fall for me, right? Chapter 1. On the day we got our marriage license, lines of floating text suddenly appeared above Zachary Quinn's head. Finally got the girl of my dreams. My wife. My one and only. I'm over the moon, greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Stay calm, don't let her figure out how crazy I am about her, keep it cool. I thought to myself, what on earth is happening? We agreed this marriage was only to save my family's company from bankruptcy, and to get his parents off his back about settling down. He also said he'd loved a secret crush for 7 whole years. We swore we'd never catch feelings for each other. Huh? As soon as we received the marriage certificate, my parents rushed me and all my luggage straight to Zachary's place. They claimed it was to let the newlyweds bond and grow closer. When I handed my suitcase over to Zachary, my dad clapped his hands and stamped his feet in pure excitement, yelling, "It's done. We're in the clear." Don't even get me started on my mom. She smiled so wide her eyes crinkled shut into thin slits. Listening to their non-stop laughter, I couldn't help but wonder, am I even their biological daughter? My in-laws adore me so much. I stared at Zachary's serious, unreadable face, then glanced back at the floating text hovering over his head. The two images just didn't match up at all. I pressed a palm to my forehead, overcome with embarrassment, desperate to bolt right then and there. Zachary Quinn was a household name all over City Y. His good looks were the least impressive thing about him. He'd taken over the family conglomerate at a young age and expanded the company's size multiple times over, with endless wealth at his fingertips. Most people would sign a prenuptial agreement before marriage to separate personal assets. But he thought it was a waste of time. He even flat out told me that even if we divorced one day, I wouldn't get a single cent from his fortune. The logic made sense, but the words stung badly all the same. Standing next to him, I felt like a tiny, insignificant gnat. Speaking of divorce, we'd signed a so-called win-win contract before tying the knot. The deal was simple, he'd inject enough capital to pull my family's failing business out of debt. In exchange, I'd marry him to stop his parents' constant marriage nagging. I'd been completely stunned when he first brought up the idea. There were dozens of ways I could repay his help. Why did marriage have to be the only option? I asked him cautiously, "You don't actually have a crush on me, do you?" We'd briefly shared a high school class section once, after all. When he transferred schools, I'd even plucked a few strands of his hair and torn a couple buttons off his uniform to sell to girls who obsessed over him. I'd lived pretty comfortably that month off the cash. Could he still have a soft spot for me after all these years? Was he secretly head over heels for me this whole time? He raised one eyebrow, slammed the contract shut, and fired off words rapid fire like a machine gun. "Go rest if you're tired. I have someone I've loved for 7 years. Do you know what 7 years means? After we marry, we leave each other alone. Don't expect me to fall for you, and don't you catch feelings for me either." I thought I'd misheard him, it sounded so absurd. His emotional intelligence was shockingly low. He hadn't been this insufferable back in high school. I slammed my palm on the table and shot to my feet in anger. Then I slowly sat back down, forcing a sheepish, polite smile. "Here's the pen, please sign the contract." I decided to bite the bullet and endure it. The contract only lasted 3 years anyway. After 3 years, I'd walk away free and clear. It was a total win with 0 downsides. I'd do anything to save my family's big mansion. The day after we signed the papers, the full transfer hit my family's bank account. Right after that, they dragged me down to the civil affairs office to get our marriage license. That's how all this started. Moving into Zachary's luxury apartment was way more awkward than I'd anticipated. This rich guy owned a massive 6,000 square foot luxury condo instead of a standalone mansion. I set my luggage down in the master bedroom and wandered all over the unit to look around. The more I saw, the angrier I got. Who designed this place? It couldn't compare to my family's mansion, but it was still enormous. Why only one single bedroom? Every other room was converted into entertainment spaces, a private theater, gaming room, home karaoke booth, tea lounge, wine cellar, full-size home gym. Not a single spare guest bedroom anywhere. Me? What a deranged designer. Did he expect every guest to sleep on the floor? The whole living room was dead silent except for the soft rustle of Zachary flipping through a magazine. I thought to myself, what a fake act. He just dumped me here without a single word and buried himself in reading. Ahem. I cleared my throat to grab his attention. No response. Ahem ahem. I coughed louder. Still nothing. My wife is so cute. How do I start a conversation with her? I'm too nervous to say anything, smiley face. I swung a fist at thin air to swat away those floating lines of text, then stuck my tongue out at him. What a narcissist. The next second, he twisted his head, and our eyes locked straight together. Me? I figured I had nothing to lose, so I cleared my throat and pretended to stay calm. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? I want to share the same bed with my OVO wife. My eyes went wide, and I blurted out without thinking, what on earth are you imagining? I'm not selling myself. Oh no. That's what happens when you speak without filtering your thoughts first. What's my wife thinking about? I didn't even say anything, sad face. I waved my hands frantically, forcing an awkward laugh. Whoops, that was my inner voice talking, not me. So cute. Huh? That was cute to him? Just how obsessed with me was this man? I might need to call an ambulance. Ugh. This ridiculous magnetic pull he has on me. Zachary leaned halfway back on the sofa, his neck tilted lazily to one side. A few buttons of his white dress shirt were undone, revealing a wide stretch of fair skin. Skin? I stared hard at his face. This infuriating wealthy businessman was unfairly good-looking. This pose is perfect, it's the #1 most attractive pose from the dating tips online. Me? Quit putting on a show, dude. Just say something already. It's almost midnight. I'm exhausted. The air hung thick with awkward silence. I ignored him for a few minutes, and he must have strained his neck. I heard a loud crack when he sat up straight again. Damn it. Degree. I bit my lip to hold back my laughter, keeping my mouth pressed into a thin line. Zachary spoke flatly, sleep in the bedroom. I already knew that much. Did he not pick up on my hidden meaning at all? I grew frustrated and asked, where will you sleep then? Bedroom. Me? We'd agreed to live separate lives and not interfere with one another. How were we supposed to share a bed the second I moved in? I'm so happy. I'm such a genius for designing this apartment. Back in high school, I'd secretly had a small crush on Zachary for a while. He had perfect grades, and compared to every other boy in our grade, he looked like he'd been drawn by a separate artist. Plus he sat right next to me every single day. It was only natural my heart fluttered for him. But he was completely clueless when it came to romance. I handed him a cold bottle of water, and he replied, I don't drink cold drinks. I asked him to walk me through a tough math problem, and he said, the teacher hasn't covered that material yet. I invited him to a weekend movie, and he shot back, your grades are rock bottom, how do you have time for entertainment? I twisted my ankle and winced in front of him, and he only said, that's terrible luck. I hinted that someone had a crush on him, and he answered seriously, our top priority right now is studying to build a better country. Dating is off limits, and that applies to you too. Me? Dude, normally you'd ask who is it? Then I could have told him it was me. How was I supposed to keep the conversation going after that? Eventually, I gave up on him. Not long after, he transferred to another school. We split the king-size bed down the middle with an invisible line. I only left a tiny strip of mattress space on the edge for Zachary. He was tall and broad, so he could only lie sideways pressed tight against the bed frame. His comforter was smoothed perfectly flat without a single wrinkle. He didn't move an inch, so quiet you'd think he wasn't even breathing. I reached out and tugged the edge of his blanket, feeling a twinge of guilt. Slide over closer to me, I'm not gonna bite you, I whispered softly. He answered in a dull, monotone voice, it's fine, I can sleep like this. My heart's racing so fast. My wife's voice sounds so sweet. Thank God I don't snore, I won't wake her up for sure. There it was again. I rolled over and let out a quiet huff. This guy was such a master at putting on a stoic front. I thought to myself, I hope he rolls off the bed in the middle of the night. I didn't expect my random silent wish to actually come true. At 3 a.m., a loud heavy thud echoed through the room, loud enough to shake the walls. Whoa, earthquake! I'd been deep in a vivid dream. In the dream, I'd led the national men's soccer team all the way to the World Cup finals. I'd told all 10 players to stand in a circle and pass the ball back and forth non-stop. We repeated the passes over and over, then smoothly kicked the ball straight into the opponent's goal. The opposing team had never seen such a bizarre strategy and had no way to defend against us. We dominated the entire match without giving them a single chance to score. In the end, I'd led our team to win the World Cup championship. The opposing coach had walked over to ask me for the secret to our victory. I'd played it mysterious and teased him, it's all Chinese martial arts. Right after saying that, I'd demonstrated a sharp set of leg kicks right there on the field. Everyone in the stadium was completely stunned by my moves. And then, a deafening crash cut through everything. The whole stadium shook violently. I jolted awake instantly, my first thought being that I was still at my parents' house. I automatically lifted a hand to feel for the bedside lamp switch, but my fingers hit nothing but empty air. It hit me all at once. Things were different now. I wasn't single anymore. I couldn't remember where the bedroom light switch was, so I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam swept across the empty bed, and I froze. Where was Zachary's huge frame? A low groan came from the floor a second later. I shone the dim light down and watched Zachary slowly push himself up to his feet. I stared hard, and he was clutching his rear end tightly. I wondered to myself, did he get hemorrhoids all of a sudden? My wife's martial arts kicks were so clean and powerful. It hurt so bad. It clicked for me immediately. I'd been throwing wild martial arts kicks in my sleep and kicked him straight off the bed. This was all the soccer match I'd watched earlier getting my blood pumping. Zachary rubbed his sore backside as he stood up, and the floating text above his head kept scrolling sad, hurt lines. My wife's strength is insane. But she looks so cute when she's asleep. I cringed so hard my toes curled inside my slippers, wanting to dig a 3-bedroom apartment into the floor out of embarrassment. I quickly threw the covers back and climbed down to hold out a hand to help him up. Do you want to come lie closer to me? The second the words left my mouth, I instantly regretted it. What on earth had I just said? Zachary froze completely, and the text hovering above his head exploded into a full screen of frantic lines. My wife invited me to snuggle. Stay calm. Keep my cool, don't lose my mind. But I want to tackle her and hug her so bad. Even though he was screaming internally, his outward expression stayed perfectly calm and unruffled. No need. He said only 2 short words, then picked up his pillow and laid back down as far from me as he could get on the mattress edge. His lonely silhouette looked pitiful. I stared at the endless floating text above his head, my heart softening while I fought back laughter. I want to sleep curled up next to my wife. But I can't be greedy, I'll scare her off. I couldn't hold back a quiet giggle. We laid back down afterward, a clear invisible divide still separating the middle of the bed. The room fell dead silent, and minutes ticked by, yet I couldn't fall asleep at all. I couldn't hold it in any longer, so I spoke in a quiet whisper. Zachary, what's your longtime crush even like anyway? The second I finished speaking, the air turned ice cold. The floating text above his head froze for several full seconds, then flooded the ceiling non-stop. Oh no, how do I answer this? Is my wife jealous? Can I just say it's her all along? Will she think I'm a total creep if I admit it? I was reading every line with great interest when he suddenly rolled over to face me directly. Why did you ask all of a sudden? I blinked, curious. I'm just curious. You said you've liked her for 7 years, right? In the pitch-black dark room, I could feel his intense gaze locked on my face. She's really cute, he said in a deep, soft voice. But she's already married, so you don't have to worry I'll cheat on you. I have my own moral boundaries, and you need to uphold yours too. A line of text floated up matching his words. She married me, after all. I felt a mix of anger and flustered shyness, then kicked the pillow dividing us hard. Zachary Quinn. He hummed quietly. Do I look like someone with zero self-control? Do you really need to remind me out of nowhere? Even if this is a contract marriage, I still have basic moral standards, okay? I yanked the comforter up and buried my entire body underneath it. Truth be told, that shy line of floating text he'd thought had sent my heart racing, my pulse beating fast enough to burst out of my chest. After a little while, I lifted a corner of the blanket and peeked out with one eye to watch him. We bickered a little, but I still couldn't stop watching his inner thoughts float by. I knew he hadn't meant anything bad by his words. I just wanted to tease him and pick a small fight. Seeing him stuck with unspoken feelings he couldn't say out loud was strangely entertaining. I heard him suck in a sharp breath beside me, and I felt his hand reach out toward me. But the warm touch barely brushed my arm before he pulled his hand back quickly. Damn it, I'm terrible with words. I read 8 full books on how to talk to girls, and I still can't comfort my wife. This awkward, soft-hearted man who couldn't speak his true feelings. I bit my lower lip and couldn't stop shaking with quiet laughter hidden under the blanket. Chapter 2. The first month of our marriage went surprisingly smoothly. He kept a ridiculously strict daily schedule, up early and coming home late, practically acting like a full-time live-in housekeeper. By the time I woke up each morning, he'd already left for the office. A warm breakfast would always sit waiting in an insulated pot, ready for me to eat any time. His personal assistant would drop off 3 full meals right at lunchtime. Every single dish rotated daily, all made with my favorite flavors. He'd wrap up work early every single evening to head home. He'd walk in carrying fresh fruits and vegetables, immediately slip on an apron, and disappear into the kitchen. He'd whip up a lavish, complete dinner with zero effort. I never had to lift a finger to wash dishes or wipe down the table after meals. He handled all household chores quickly and neatly every single time. Sometimes I'd pretend to step in and help clean up. Let me take care of this, you've worked a full day already. He'd instantly lift his head and ask, are you short on cash? Before I could explain, he'd grab his phone and send me a 7-figure wire transfer without hesitation, generous and doting every single time. If my wife spends my money, that means she loves me. If my wife eats the food I cook, that means she loves me. I'm the luckiest man alive, greater than over equal to less than over equal to me. This treatment was straight-up queen-level luxury. One morning, I was leisurely eating breakfast Zachary had made. I had to admit this ruthless corporate titan who struck fear into every business rival was shockingly good at making fried eggs. Just then, my phone buzzed nonstop with an incoming message. Mia, I'm back from overseas. Wanna meet up sometime? Sender, Vincent Reed. My heart skipped a beat in shock. Vincent? How did he even get my phone number? My hand trembled, and the fork in my grasp clattered down onto the ceramic plate. Vincent Reed was a painful chapter from my college years. We dated for only one short month. Young and naive back then, I'd fallen for his artsy, poetic facade. I'd soon learned he was nothing but a shameless playboy. When we broke up, he'd even arrogantly told me I wasn't good enough for him. Now he'd suddenly flown back to the country and reached out. What was he after? I instinctively glanced up at Zachary sitting across the table. He sipped his coffee slowly, long eyelashes lowered, face calm and unreadable. But the floating text above his head had already blown up into a chaotic mess. Vincent Reed? Why hasn't this guy vanished off the face of the earth? Didn't he waste his life abroad doing nothing productive? My wife must never meet him. If he dares ask my wife out, I'll ruin his entire livelihood. I nearly choked on my orange juice. Good grief, this man looked cold and unfeeling on the surface, but his inner thoughts were this explosive and fiery. Did he even know Vincent existed? Had he secretly hired private investigators to dig up my entire past? This was straight out of a rich CEO romance novel plot. What's wrong? Zachary set down his coffee mug, his tone as casual as commenting on the weather. And nothing, I quickly turned off my phone screen and brushed it off. Just an old college classmate saying he wants to catch up. She's lying. My wife's ears turn bright red when she hides the truth. I see right through her. Vincent, you're completely finished. I automatically lifted a hand to cover my burning hot ears. Zachary picked up on tiny details way too easily. I'd never planned to meet Vincent at all. But he kept blowing up my messages, claiming he had critical news he had to tell me face to face. He even threatened to show up at my front door if I refused to meet him. I'd moved out of my parents' house, so I didn't fear him bothering me here. But I was terrified he'd lose his sense of boundaries and harass my mom and dad. Harassing my family was bad enough, but I feared his loud, rude mouth would get him punched by my dad. I remembered once running into him while shopping with my dad. He'd openly insult my father and claim I was still his girlfriend right in front of us. I'd been so embarrassed I'd wanted to disappear on the spot. With no other choice, I agreed to meet him. I intentionally picked a cafe as far from my apartment as possible, scheduling the meeting for 3 p.m. on a workday afternoon. At this hour, Zachary would definitely be stuck back-to-back in company meetings with no free time. I'd barely sat down for 5 minutes when the cafe front door swung open. Zachary walked in wearing a casual tailored suit, sunglasses perched on his nose, one hand tucked into his trouser pocket. His whole posture screamed I just happened to pass by, no big deal. Me? I knew I had to come anyway. Vincent, show yourself already, I promise I won't throw a punch. My wife looks absolutely stunning today. What a coincidence, he walked straight over and sat down beside me. You're here for coffee too? My mouth twitched in helplessness, and I spoke flatly. Sure, what a coincidence. Didn't you say you had back-to-back meetings all day? The meetings got cancelled last minute, he lied without a single flicker of guilt. As he spoke, he casually draped an arm over the back of my booth seat, radiating blatant possessiveness. My wife smells amazing, amazed face. Where's Vincent hiding? Once he shows up, I won't be able to hold back my anger. I stared at him confused, he'd just said he wouldn't hit anyone a minute ago. Right then, the cafe door opened a second time, and Vincent stepped inside. 5 years apart had changed him drastically beyond recognition. The slim, handsome young man I'd dated back then had turned overweight and middle-aged looking. I wondered silently what kind of life he'd lived overseas all these years. The only thing unchanged was his arrogant, stuck-up attitude, chin tilted high as if he thought he was superior to everyone around him. Mia. His smile froze the second he spotted Zachary sitting next to me. Who's this? Before I could open my mouth to introduce them, Zachary extended his hand first. Her husband. Yes. That felt so satisfying. So satisfying. So satisfying. Vincent's face turned ugly instantly, like he'd swallowed a fly whole. You're married? We just got our marriage license recently. I deliberately leaned closer to Zachary's side, putting on a loving, affectionate act. I could feel his arm tense up rigidly the second I leaned into him. I'm losing my mind. My wife's cheek is so soft, I want to kiss her. Vincent, get out of my sight already. Vincent forced a stiff smile and slowly sat down across from us. Actually, I came back to tell you. She doesn't want to hear it, Zachary cut him off cold mid-sentence. If you're here to beg for money, save your breath, I've already looked into your financial records. I stared in shock at the man beside me. When had he secretly run background checks? I stayed up all night researching his background last night. This rival needs to be completely crushed. I'm such a brilliant husband. Vincent's face turned deep red with rage, rushing to defend himself. I'm not here to borrow money. Then are you here to brag about your failing art gallery? Zachary continued to stab at his weak points. Also, your business partner embezzled all your funds and fled the country yesterday. I barely held back a burst of laughter. Zachary left zero room for mercy, hitting every single one of Vincent's sore spots with pinpoint accuracy. He cut off every attempt Vincent made to speak, leaving the man speechless and seething with rage. Vincent's expression twisted into a chaotic mess, and he finally stood up to leave in humiliation. Before walking out, he drained his entire coffee mug in one bitter gulp. After all these years, his cheap, grab-any-free-stuff habits hadn't changed one bit. On the drive home, Zachary focused fully on driving, his face calm and neutral. But the floating text above his head was filled with triumphant, giddy lines. I won the standoff. My wife belongs only to me. No one can steal her away. I'm gonna eat 3 full bowls of rice tonight to celebrate. While we waited at a red light, I couldn't resist leaning over and pressing a quick light kiss to his cheek. Thanks, hubby. The car jolted slightly, nearly rolling through the red light. He instantly straightened his expression and acted stern. That was reckless. You need to watch your behavior. Sit. Feel free to be reckless more often, I don't mind at all. My wife kissed me. I'm never washing this cheek for the rest of my life. I laughed until my sides hurt. This man who contradicted every single one of his words with his inner thoughts was utterly adorable. Chapter 3. I'd accidentally uncovered Zachary's secret ability by pure chance one day. He'd been locked in a video conference in his home study, fully focused on the screen. I carried a mug of hot coffee over and set it down beside his desk. My eyes drifted to the side, and I caught a glimpse of translucent floating text hovering above his head. My wife looks so cute in this sweater today, I want to pull her into a tight hug. My body reacted faster than my brain, and I instinctively reached out to tap the line of text hanging in midair. I silently repeated the words in my head 3 times. The next second, the quiet study echoed with Zachary's own voice speaking the thought out loud. My wife looks so cute in this sweater today, I want to pull her into a tight hug. That sudden random statement stunned every high-level executive on the video call into dead silence. I watched the back of his neck flush bright red, his fingers freezing rigidly on the keyboard. He sat frozen for 3 full seconds before scrambling to awkwardly cover up his slip-up. What I mean is, This project plan is quite cute and requires all of us to huddle together to discuss and refine it as a team. The text floating above his head exploded into a wall of frantic words. What on earth did I just say? Why did my inner thoughts blurt out loud for everyone to hear? I quickly spun around and fled back to the kitchen, where I let myself laugh as loud as I wanted without holding back. This was the ultimate trick to completely wrap Zachary around my finger. The next morning at breakfast, I sat directly across from him. Zachary buried his nose in a financial newspaper, and slow lines of text drifted above his head. Jam smudged on my wife's lip. I wanna lick it off. My reflexes were lightning fast, and I tapped the text instantly. Jam smudged on my wife's lip. I wanna lick it off. He finished speaking the line before he realized what he'd done, crumpling the newspaper hard in his grip. I pretended to look confused and wiped my lip with a napkin. What did you just say? You misheard me. He ducked his head and chugged his coffee, his ears burning bright red. The text flooded non-stop. This is terrifying. Why do I keep saying my private thoughts out loud lately? Is someone controlling me from behind the scenes? Did I offend someone without realizing it? While he stepped away to grab toast from the counter, I tapped another floating line. The way she walks is adorable too. The way she walks is adorable too. He froze mid-step, and the toast slipped from his grasp, clattering back onto the plate. I tilted my head and smiled innocently. Zachary, have you been under a lot of work pressure lately? He took a deep breath, and new text appeared overhead. I need to book an appointment with a neurologist immediately. That weekend, I attended a business gala for the first time as Zachary Quinn's official wife. Before, I'd only ever shown up as my father's daughter, my mother's precious girl. I had to admit the experience was completely different. Simply put, it was incredibly satisfying. Zachary wore a crisp tailored suit, busy chatting with clients, yet his floating text betrayed his true inner feelings. This guy talks way too much. I miss going home to watch TV with my wife. This client was an old family friend of my dad's. Pulling a small prank wouldn't hurt anyone, right? A mischievous idea popped into my head. I tiptoed closer to him and tapped the floating text line. This guy talks way too much. I miss going home to watch TV with my wife. The room fell completely silent. The client's smile froze stiff on his face. His inner thought must have been, this kid's dead meat. Zachary's face twisted through dozens of complex emotions. I watched his Adam's apple bob up and down as he forced a clumsy save. What I meant was, Director Wang's insights into the television industry are truly inspiring. The text above his head crashed into panic mode. Am I cursed by some bad karma? Is this the price for all the unkind thoughts I've had lately? While he stepped to the restroom, I waited for him in the hallway. New text floated into view, my wife's perfume scent. I tapped it instantly. My wife's perfume scent. He froze mid-step, realizing he'd spoken his thought aloud again, then gritted his teeth and called my name. Mia Lin. I blinked and acted totally clueless. He took a sudden step forward, trapping me against the wall between his arms. Blazing text flashed rapidly overhead, keep teasing me and I'll kiss you until you're breathless. I held my breath instantly. Oh no. I definitely didn't dare keep messing with him after that threat. Lately, he lowered his head and whispered right beside my ear, his warm breath making my legs weak, have you been hiding something from me? She smells so good, hold back, don't scare her off. My face burned bright red, and I pushed his chest away lightly. Mr. Quinn, you should go back to entertain your guests. That night I couldn't fall asleep. I quietly snuck to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, only to find the study light still on. Zachary was slumped over his desk fast asleep, his computer screen open to a research paper titled Causes of Sudden Uncontrolled Verbal Outbursts. Poor guy. A notebook beside his laptop was filled with dense handwriting. Third instance of accidentally blurting out inner thoughts. Only happens when Mia is around. Could it be fated destiny tying us together? I knew we were a perfect match from the start. My heart softened, and I turned to leave, when faint translucent text slowly floated above his head. If I could say all my true thoughts out loud every single day. The words I didn't dare say the day I transferred high schools. I still don't have the courage to say them now. My fingers hovered over the floating text, but I chose not to tap it. The next morning, he showed up with dark under-eye circles and handed me a velvet jewelry box. When I opened it, a necklace rested inside, a tiny microchip hidden within the pendant. He spoke flatly with zero emotion, "This isn't a GPS tracker, don't jump to conclusions. If I accidentally blurt out my inner thoughts again, press this pendant, and I'll get a mild electric shock." I noticed he wore an identical matching necklace around his own neck too. I bit back my laughter and put it on, and new text instantly popped up overhead. Success. My wife and I have matching couple jewelry now. This fool had no clue I could see every single thought drifting above his head. 7 nights later, I curled up alone on the living room sofa watching a horror thriller movie. He happened to walk through the living room to grab a glass of water, then reluctantly sat down beside me to watch alongside me. When the female lead screamed on screen, a line of text floated by, "If she gets scared, she can lean into my arms, silly girl." I didn't tap the text this time, but I subtly shifted my body a tiny bit closer to his side. A second later, a warm blanket carrying his body heat draped gently over my shoulders. The text above his head exploded like fireworks. She moved closer to me on her own. "Stay calm. Don't act overjoyed. I'm so happy I want to sprint 3 full laps around the residential complex." I lowered my head and smiled quietly to myself. "Zachary Quinn, how could you be this lovable? I'd completely fallen for you without even noticing. Would that make you feel proud of yourself? Don't get too cocky though. I needed to think up a few more little pranks to tease you with later." Chapter 4. That weekend, my parents dragged Zachary back to their house for a family dinner. The second we stepped through the front door, my mom grabbed his hands warmly, full of concern. "Ching Ching, have you lost weight lately? Has Mia been taking good care of your meals?" Zachary's outward expression stayed completely calm as he replied, "She takes excellent care of me." But his inner text spiraled into chaos. My mother-in-law called me Ching Ching. Cooking should never be my wife's job, it's my responsibility completely. I'm so nervous, where am I supposed to put my hands? I smiled and leaned in to whisper beside his ear, "Mom's asking you a question, what are you daydreaming about?" Before he could reply, my dad cut in and asked, "Ching Ching, when are you two planning to have kids?" Zachary's nerves spiked, and he lost his grip on his drinking glass. It slammed hard against the table, water splashing everywhere. I quickly grabbed a napkin to wipe up the mess, thinking his reaction was far too dramatic. The text above his head flooded the ceiling. "Kids?" Father-in-law asked so straight out of nowhere. "I haven't even held my wife's hand more than a handful of times, how are we supposed to have kids?" I barely held back my laughter and tapped one line of floating text. "I haven't even held my wife's hand more than a handful of times, how are we supposed to have kids?" Zachary's voice echoed loud through the whole dining room. The air turned ice cold instantly. My dad's chopsticks froze halfway to his mouth, and my mom's smile stiffened on her face. As for me, I fought tooth and nail to keep my laughter from bursting out loud. Zachary's face looked like he'd been struck by lightning, and text flooded non-stop overhead. Why did I just say that out loud? Would jumping out the window save me right now? Mia's snickering over there. My mom recovered first and slapped her thigh loudly. "Oh my goodness. You two are still in the pure newlywed phase then." My dad wore a serious expression and turned to me. Mia, this won't do. Young ladies need to take the initiative more. Me? Dad, you're completely flipping normal gender expectations on their head. Zachary's ears burned bright red, and his text devolved into messy garbled symbols. At #UN%*. After dinner, my mom practically shoved us out onto the balcony to stargaze, then shut the sliding door behind us to give us privacy. There weren't any stars visible at all, not even a single moon peeking through the clouds. A cool night breeze swept over us, and Zachary and I stood shoulder to shoulder, neither speaking a word. A cautious line of text drifted up overhead. Should I try holding her hand? Are my father-in-law and mother-in-law secretly spying on us? My wife's hands look so soft. I tilted my head and asked him deliberately, "What are you thinking about?" He kept a straight face. Nothing. But the bouncing translucent text above his head betrayed him. I wanna hold her. I bit back my grin and pretended to stare out at the scenery, while my fingertips lightly brushed the back of his hand. Zachary went rigid all over, and every line of text turned bright red. She touched me. Is this a hint? Screw it, I'm grabbing her hand. The next second, his hand shot out and tightly laced his fingers through mine, his grip so firm I almost yelped from the pressure. No doubt about it, I was the first girl he'd ever held hands with. This guy's grip strength was insane, like a bull's. I held her hand. My wife's hands are softer than I ever imagined. I'm officially marking today as our anniversary. I hadn't even finished my quiet smile when I glanced up and spotted my parents' faces pressed flat against the balcony glass window, grinning until their eyes crinkled shut. Zachary followed my line of sight and froze solid. We got caught watching. Should I let go of her hand now? Forget it, I'm not letting go no matter what. As we prepared to leave, my mom stuffed a box labeled supplements into my bag and whispered mysteriously, "Young people need to take care of their bodies." I glanced down inside the box, all sorts of animal tonic herbs. Zachary. My mother-in-law has completely misunderstood our relationship. We haven't even done anything intimate at all. Will these tonics make me overheat and get nosebleeds? My dad patted his shoulder and spoke earnestly. Ching-ching, keep up the hard work. Zachary nodded stiffly, having fully given up on salvaging his image. Let the world end already. On the drive home, he stayed silent the entire trip. If it weren't for the constant stream of floating text above his head, I would have thought he truly didn't care about anything at all. Do my in-laws think I'm incapable? What gifts should I bring next time to fix my image? Maybe I should just learn how to speak properly first. I couldn't hold back my laughter and doubled over against the car seat. He glanced over at me, his eyes full of quiet hurt, yet his inner thoughts remained soft and gentle. It's fine, as long as my wife's happy. My heart skipped a beat. Oh no. I think I've genuinely fallen head over heels for you, Zachary Quinn. That night, raindrops streaked down the floor-to-ceiling windows, weaving a dense water curtain. Only one warm yellow wall lamp lit the entire room. I curled up on one end of the sofa scrolling through my phone, my eyes automatically drifting over to Zachary every few seconds. He sat on the opposite end of the sofa flipping through work documents, slender fingers moving slowly, gold-rimmed glasses perched on his nose, his gaze sharp and focused. A line of text floated above his head. My wife's tiny feet are so cute, I want to squeeze them. I rolled my eyes and instinctively reached out to tap the text. But this time, my fingers didn't pass straight through the translucent words. I touched something tangible, soft and cool, like grabbing a wisp of smoke. I froze in shock and squeezed my fingers shut tight. I'd physically pulled the floating text line down from midair. Me. The text curled up in my palm like a glowing ribbon, trembling faintly. Zachary remained completely oblivious, still fully absorbed in reviewing paperwork, and new text automatically refreshed above his head. Why has my wife been staring at me non-stop? My heart raced wildly, staring at the wanna-squeeze text trapped in my palm. On a whim, while he wasn't looking, I tossed the glowing ribbon straight into his coffee mug. The text vanished the second it hit the liquid. He lifted the mug without a second thought and took a sip. The next instant, his hand shot out and squeezed my foot lightly. I jerked my leg back hard, nearly tumbling off the sofa. A faint electric tingle shot all the way from my toes up my whole body. Zachary froze too, his fingers frozen mid-squeeze, brows furrowed like he couldn't explain his own sudden action. You have dust on your foot, he pulled his hand back flatly, his tone as dry as delivering a corporate quarterly report. But brand new text had already exploded above his head. Why did I just squeeze my wife's foot? But it was so soft though. I bit my lip hard to stifle my laughter. Had my special ability leveled up into something new? The most chaotic incident happened later that night. He just stepped out of the shower, hair still dripping wet, bathrobe loosely tied at the waist, a few beads of water clinging to his collarbone. I was applying facial skincare cream, and my peripheral vision caught new text floating above his head. I wanna bite my wife's shoulder. Was this man some kind of secretly obsessive Yandra boss? I couldn't let that slide. I pretended to tidy the bathroom counter, and while he bent forward to dry his hair, I quickly plucked the glowing text ribbon and stuck it to the belt of his bathrobe. His fingers brushed the ribbon as he retied the robe. The next second, he pushed me back against the bathroom vanity counter. Warm lips pressed to my neck and shoulder, his teeth grazing lightly against my skin, sending tiny shivers rippling across my whole body. Zachary Quinn. My voice trembled uncontrollably. This was the fastest my heart had ever beaten in my entire life. I'd definitely gone too far messing with his inner thoughts. He suddenly snapped out of his daze and pulled back. The mirror reflected his wide, shocked eyes and bright red ears. I'm sorry, his voice was deep and rough, Adam's apple bobbing rapidly. I don't know what came over me. The text above his head devolved into messy panicked symbols. What am I doing? My wife tastes so sweet. Help, my body won't calm down. Me? Did I interpret that line correctly? Zachary Quinn, you're way too easily tempted. That night, Zachary headed back to the shower for a second round, staying inside for over 40 minutes without emerging. I tiptoed over to the bathroom door and heard low male muttering coming from inside. I covered my face and blushed bright red. I leaned against the closet door and watched Zachary yank his third dress shirt off his body, unable to hold back my laughter any longer. Mr. Quinn, are you prepping for a fashion runway show or just going to meet my best friend? He froze mid-motion, then grabbed a fourth dark navy dress shirt and asked blankly, how's this one? It looks great, but you'd look good in anything. Sharon only cares about looks anyway. Sharon and I had been best friends for 5 years, close enough to share everything except romantic partners. His brows creased slightly, and a faint line of text floated overhead. Is my wife's best friend only into good-looking guys? I laughed out loud and added on purpose, Sharon's ex-boyfriend was a runway model with rock-hard abs you could use as a laundry board. Zachary's hand froze mid-air. 3 seconds later. Whoosh. He unbuttoned his shirt in a rush and tossed it aside, revealing sharp, defined abdominal muscles, then spoke calmly. This fabric suddenly feels stuffy, I'll switch to a thinner one. Me. The text above his head rolled non-stop, full of angry emojis. So what if he's a model? I've got 8 full abs. Look at me, wife. He turned his back to me to rummage through the closet, ears faintly pink, while rambling in a serious tone. What's your friend's full name? What time are we meeting? Which restaurant did you book? What's her boyfriend's background? I slowly walked over and plucked the crumpled shirt from his grasp, my fingertips brushing lightly across his palm on purpose. Zachary Quinn, are you nervous? His Adam's apple bobbed once, and he suddenly pulled me tight into his chest. Mia Lin. He lowered his head, warm breath brushing against my earlobe. I'm your husband, when meeting your friend. I can't lose. He said the last 3 words almost through gritted teeth. I'm meeting my wife's best friend. I have to look the most attractive one there. Will I get a reward if I win? I teased him, wait a minute, aren't we just a contract marriage? Why take this so seriously? Wah, sad face. Zachary kept a serious, unyielding expression. So what if we are? He looked like he'd given up on pretending everything was fine and had decided to stop hiding his feelings. I smiled and poked his chest lightly. Mr. Quinn, your expression right now looks exactly like... Like what? Like a new bride meeting her in-laws for the first time, all flustered. I'll remember this jab forever. Never mind. I'll endure this awkward flustered bride act for my wife's sake. I laughed until my sides ached, and he shot me a sharp glare. I stood on my tiptoes and pressed a light kiss to his chin. Relax, you'd outshine everyone even if you wore a burlap sack. He let out a cold huff. That was far too forward of you. He turned back to sorting through shirts, but the floating text above his head completely betrayed his true joy. My wife kissed me. She loves me. I'm over the moon. Even in a burlap sack, I'll still outshine everyone for her. Chapter 5. We met at a Japanese-style izakaya restaurant. So this is the famous CEO everyone talks about? Sharon's eyes lit up, and she secretly kicked my foot under the table, mouthing silently to me, you hit the jackpot. I cleared my throat awkwardly and snuck a glance at Zachary sitting rigidly beside me. He wore a crisp dark gray tailored suit, his tie knotted perfectly, even washing small tableware looked like a high-end elite social ritual. Julian Carter, I work in tech investment, Sharon's new boyfriend extended a hand, his luxury watch glinting subtly under the overhead lights. The second our hands shook, I could practically see sparks flying between the two men. Zachary wore a standard polite business smile, yet a prominent line of text floated above his head. His handshake grip is weak, he never works out. Mia said you work in tech startups? Julian poured a cup of rice wine for Sharon. The sci-tech stock market's been booming lately. Zachary's verbal replies were short, but his inner thoughts burned with competitive jealousy. Why's he allowed to call my wife Mia? Investment banking's nothing special, I was already doing venture capital back in college. I quickly pinched his thigh under the table, only for him to instantly wrap his fingers around my wrist instead. He kept a calm face while picking up a piece of salmon sashimi and placing it on my plate, text floating overhead. My wife's hands are so soft, /omega. Wow, you're so thoughtful, Mr. Quinn. Sharon rested her chin in her palm and winked at me. My Julian does the same for me, last week I caught a cold, he specially. The next 20 minutes turned into a non-stop perfect boyfriend bragging contest. Every time Julian mentioned one of his boyfriend perks, Zachary would copy it with an even more over-the-top gesture within half an hour. Julian said he peeled shrimp for Sharon? Zachary immediately waved the waiter over. I'll order all the shrimp on the menu tonight. Julian peeled shrimp for Sharon with smooth, practiced movements. I couldn't help but glance over. Zachary instantly set down his chopsticks. I'll peel some for you too. I stared in shock. You know how to peel shrimp? He replied calmly, I'll figure it out. Then, plop. The shrimp slipped straight onto Sharon's plate. Sharon, thanks. Zachary kept a blank, unfazed expression. My hand slipped. Stupid slippery shrimp. Why are shrimp so hard to peel? I'll have my assistant research anti-slip gloves first thing tomorrow. He stared at the full plate of prawns like they were his mortal enemy, then quietly pulled out his phone to search how to peel shrimp elegantly. Julian mentioned buying luxury designer bags for Sharon? Zachary instantly opened a luxury auction app, and I shot him a warning glare to stop him. A line of sad text floated overhead. Is my money not enough to compete with him? I'm going to the restroom for a minute. Sharon winked and slipped away, with Julian politely following shortly after. The second the private booth door shut, Zachary pushed me back against the corner of the seating bench. Your friend has terrible taste in men. His warm breath fanned across my ear. Julian's clearly a great guy. Before I finished speaking, he leaned in closer, hot breath making my skin prickle with tiny shivers. He glanced at you 3 times just now. I stared in shock at the frantic text scrolling above his head. His waist is thinner than mine. His shirt's last year's outdated design. The way he moves his Adam's apple when he talks looks so forced and fake. Good grief. I'd witnessed real-life male competitiveness for the first time. One-sided competitiveness, at that. Julian's eyes were only ever fixed on Sharon the whole time. He'd only glanced at Zachary to size him up. I pushed the thought aside. This supposed top-tier corporate CEO was nothing more than a kindergarten-age boy fighting for attention. When the couple returned, Julian carried an elegant gift box in his hands. I heard Mr. Quinn is treating tonight's dinner. This bottle of Romani Conti is from my personal wine cellar as a gift. Deep red wine poured into the wine glasses, but Zachary instantly pressed a hand over my glass before I could lift it. She's allergic to alcohol. He then drained my full glass of wine in one smooth motion without a single flinch. After 3 glasses, I realized a terrifying truth. The legendary CEO who could hold his liquor through dozens of business banquets was actually a 1-glass lightweight. Wife. Zachary suddenly buried his burning hot face into the curve of my neck while I was sipping miso soup, nearly making me choke to death. His fluffy hair rubbed against my collarbone, the scent of wine clinging to his warm breath, hot air fanning across my skin and sending a shiver down my spine. You smell so good. He inhaled deeply like a large loyal dog, his nose brushing over my neck's pulse point. Peach-scented body wash. Sharon's chopsticks clattered to the table in shock, and Julian's expression looked like he'd just seen aliens land on Earth. I scrambled to push his shoulders away, only for him to seize my wrist and press it tight against his chest. Through the custom Italian dress shirt, I could clearly feel his racing heartbeat. Let go. You're completely drunk. I hissed in a quiet warning, catching sight of Sharon pulling out her phone to record video. Sharon. You're dead to me later. I'm not, he pouted softly.